Just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if they're sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right, Bad Weather Fans, episode number 112. Mike Biseglia, Alex Benesowitz. Brooklyn Nets getting ready for the NBA playoffs. The Knicks getting ready for the NBA lottery. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can clearly see that is not Alex B next to me. It is DJT, Dolan J Trump, who will be co-hosting with me today. Alex, unfortunately, under the weather, did get COVID. He's doing good. He's solid. He'll be fine, but just, not in the best podcast shape as we get ready for these NBA playoffs, but he will be here moving forward. With that in mind, I did want to bring in one of the biggest net haters that I know. People might be saying like, okay, well, the Nets are playing in the playoffs. Why not bring in a Nets person to preview the Nets? I got to keep it balanced. And I thought, who is the biggest Knicks fan I know that hates the Nets more than anybody? And it's Dolan J Trump. It's always an honor. And I think this is like your fourth time on this podcast. So hello, Dolan. How are you?
Mike, it's a pleasure as always. You do a tremendous job keeping it fair and balanced. So thank you for having me on. Alex, I hope you're feeling okay. I was actually, as many people know, I was sick with COVID back in early January. The doctors at Willis Reed Medical did a tremendous job. So I'm more concerned though about Mike and his back injury that I just learned about. So
yeah,
I ramp up program though, right?
Yeah, I messed up my back, my spine. It feels awful. If you notice me fidgeting throughout the podcast, that's why. But I am not Ben Simmons, so we don't have to talk about me. But Ben Simmons, now there's reports, Dolan, that he's going to be coming back possibly by Game 3 of these NBA playoffs. And who the hell really knows what the Nets will get from him, what will be there. But, last time we did this podcast, I was with Alex, and I was saying the Nets could be out of the playoffs. They might not even make it after that Knicks win. But 5 wins later, here the Nets are, Dolan, and it's Hayden season instead of the 7-2 versus Boston.
Well, the difference between you and Ben Simmons is that you will legitimately have a back injury. Now, has anyone seen the MRI report for Ben Simmons? No. This is something that I've been saying for a long time now. There is no injury. There's never been. This is all a plot. It's a hoax. Stop it. This was just a way that they can get the money, win the lawsuit against the Sixers.
You real legit think he has not been injured the last couple of months?
I don't think so.
And then why at this point would they do a ramp up for Game 3? Why not just go?
Optics, simple as that.
Come on, you're hating on it. Like I understand.
Also, why Game 3? What's the difference between Game 1 and 2 versus Game 3? A friendly. Well, actually, I don't know if we have a friendly crowd because it'll probably be mostly Boston fans at the Barclays Center.
Oh, see, you're going back to your old shit. The Net fans have been pretty solid actually at Barclays Center, and the crowds have been good. I'm curious to see what he looks like out there. But until it happens, it's hard to even dream about it or think about it. But in the meantime, Nets versus Celtics should be an interesting series on a lot of fronts. I mean, the Celtics have been one of the hottest teams in the NBA over the last half of the season. Jason Tatum's been playing at an MVP level, and they play solid defense. No Robert Williams. We'll see when he comes back. I think he will in this series. That's what it feels like. But from a game plan status, an X's and O's status, this is a really intriguing Nets versus Celtics series, and your more untraditional 2 versus 7.
No, it's very intriguing, and I think I don't think Boston's afraid of them. So, no. Cleveland clearly the other night. I mean, Karis LeVert, who's let's be honest. I mean, how overrated is that guy? That guy was a media creation, the third star with Kyrie and KD. That guy is what he is. He pops off every now and then, goes for his 35 points. But other than that, he's a high volume. He's average, Karis LeVert. Simple as that. But you saw the other night with Cleveland. I mean, why didn't Jared Allen tough it out, try to play in the game? Anyways, I don't think Boston's going to be afraid of them. My only concern is that, and actually I've been saying this now for a few days, is that I think Marcus Smart, they're going to charge him early with 2 quick fouls to get him onto the bench. That's what I'm afraid of. I hope the referees they call it. They're not a little overzealous with the whistle, and I hope that they call it both ways, which they should. But other than that, I think that win that Boston had when Kyrie was first like reinstated, I think like that was a huge confidence win, and so I think that will be hopefully a driving force for them. So.
Yeah, you look back at that game, it's interesting because that was the first game that Kyrie and KD really got implemented together, and the Nets hung in there with the Celtics. They lost ultimately at the end. Jason Tatum went for 54. He was simply spectacular, and the Nets could not pull through late, and that Boston got the win. I don't know from a net perspective if that game really matters to their psyche. I think Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are going to go anywhere they want to go and do what they want to do. Now, if they're good enough, that's another story, and I'm not saying the Nets are going to win this series or anything like that and give a bold prediction. But I don't think that win for Boston, I think, does more for the Celtics than it would have done for the Nets. I think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving have really seen everything that you could see in an NBA season to get to where they've gone. So I don't think that affects them or bother them. I also think, too, like the Nets don't play well at home. The Nets play better on the road in a weird way, Dolan. I like the idea that they start this series on the road because I think as a Nets fan, you have to go in there going, this is not, oh, we'll come back home court. You got to go into Boston. They need at least one win because of how well they perform on the road and not as good at home. And to me, it's not about like home road records. Oh, I hate the cliche. A series doesn't start until the road team wins. It's the first team to 4. Get me to 4. Sunday's the first opportunity for it. If I'm a Nets fan, I want blood. I want both in Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like the Nets, they can win anywhere. So yeah, and then KD and Kyrie have proven everything they have. They're not going to be thrown off by a hostile Boston crowd. I'm more interested to see the supporting cast. I mean, Bruce Brown's been playing extremely well, albeit a lot of his points are because he's the beneficiary of everyone doubling everyone else, and he's just completely wide open. But I got to give him credit. He's been much better, obviously, with the corner 3. He's shooting it with much more confidence. I'm curious to see how well he does now. Those role players, as you always reference to, those role players on the road in the playoffs. I'm curious to see how he does. Nicholas Claxton, another guy who's been playing very well. It'd be very interesting to see that. I'm actually also interested to see now that Bruce Brown has made that comment. Is there a hard foul in store that's coming his way if he tries to go to the hoop? Daniel Tice or I don't think Horford will. But I'm just curious to see what's going to happen there.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Message,
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And me, like I hate comments like that. And that's why I was appreciative. And for people that don't know the comments, what Bruce Brown basically said in the post game after the win versus the Cavs was there's no Robert Williams. It's easier to attack the paint against the likes of Al Horford, against the likes of Tice. Now, with that being said, Kevin Durant afterwards was like, he's having too much of that caffeine. And Durant knows the deal. Like people were giving shit to Kevin Durant because they're like, oh, he shit talks on the court all the time. Who is he to then go in a post game and tell Bruce Brown to be quiet? Well, it's a little bit different. First of all, it's Bruce Brown. That's Kevin Durant. And I think there's something about actions speak louder than words. Kevin Durant is doing it on the court. It has a bigger impact than Bruce Brown talking shit after the game. And I hate the idea of giving Boston any more material. I don't think ultimately it will matter. I did like Durant kind of putting that flame out, but if I'm the Celtics, I would expect that. And to your point before, Dolan, about the role players, last year for the playoffs, the Nets role players versus the Bucks in particular were an absolute disaster. We know what happened to Joe Harris. He sucked. Landry Shamet couldn't do anything. It was basically Kevin Durant holding his own and James Harden sort of being out there and getting some significant contributions from Jeff Green. What will we see from this Nets team here? And that's the wild card where I implement back to Ben Simmons, which makes this all so bizarre, right? Like Ben Simmons coming back. And to me, when people say Ben Simmons coming back will be a deterrent for the Nets, I would disagree with that only because I can't guarantee you it's a positive, but he's going to be essentially the 7th, 8th guy for this team. And if things go well, he'll be better. But I wouldn't look at Ben Simmons right now and be like, he's the 3rd guy. I wouldn't have that mentality looking at Ben Simmons coming back to the Nets. I don't know what you think on that.
And whose minutes does he take away from if he's back in? And so
good
that's
question.
What I'm curious about, because he's taking away minutes Claxton's been playing extremely well defensively. I mean, I feel like every time that guy is on the court defensively, he's blocking someone at the rim. Bruce Brown, I mean, he's not going to take away minutes from Bruce Brown, is he? I know Curry has the ankle injury, but he's managing his way through it. So is Patty Mills the guy who's not going to play? So that's what. And the other thing I don't understand is, okay, if he's been out this entire time, although I think the whole thing has just been staged, and what they're leaking out to the reporters, I think the media has lost all credibility. And this is me speaking. Honestly, this is not me doing my shtick right now, but I lost my thought.
No, you're talking about Ben Simmons being out, not shtick.
Right, but also, like, what is he going to provide? Like, how does a guy who has not played in like a year? Okay, it's been basically what, a year? I don't know. Like, that was the last game against
11 months and 2 days, whatever.
Right, and then and I mean, and they always say, like, being in a game versus practice, it's not the same. So I understand. Okay, fine, they can do a 15-minute. We'll use that term, ramp up. I can't stand that term, but they play 15 minutes, and maybe the next game they can bump up to 20 minutes. But that guy, I mean, he has not been in a competitive game in a very long time. So that's what I'm curious to see.
Yeah, and I hear you on that, and it's all fair points. And any net fan that's going to go defend Ben Simmons and be like, "Oh, when this guy comes back, he'll be great," we don't know, and that's all fair and good. But if you're a net fan and you're the net organization, would you not want to at least take the chance and see what happens? I would. I mean, if you're a New York Knicks fan listening right now, and your New York Knicks are going to the playoffs, and you've got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and you're going out to play, and someone says Ben Simmons can come back, let's see what happens. You would say no to it? Like, that's the part to me that I can't. When people, I can't fathom that. Yeah, I respect and understand this idea. He might not be great. He might not be good, and maybe it hurts them, and they take the experiment and they say, let's not do it. But you wouldn't even try? I mean, Ben Simmons has a terrible postseason last year and has a bad track record. But he also has you're going to give more minutes to Kessler Edwards if Ben Simmons? Like, you want to at least give this a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I would try. I'm curious, but at whose expense? That's what I'm wondering. Is it Kessler Edwards then who doesn't play? They put him on the shelf. I assume LaMarcus Aldridge is not going to. Is he going to get any run? I mean,
I don't think so. He hasn't played he played sparingly for a few minutes, but he hasn't played in 3 weeks anyway.
I'm looking at the box score right now from the game when they played the Celtics in Boston. I mean, he was 7 of 10 shooting that game.
Yeah, but Dolan, to interrupt you, and I like interrupting you. He hasn't played in a month. He's been shelved. Right now, it's Drummond. Claxton gets the minutes. I'd be intrigued if they went with Simmons at the 5. I'd be interested to see what that looks like. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know how this is going to fan out, but you have to at least try. You made this trade in the middle of the season where you gave away James Harden. Drummond's been solid. Curry's been good, but he's been hurt. So that's been a problem. You at least need to see it. I'd have more of a problem with the Nets if he came out. I'd have more of a problem if he was healthy and they didn't play him, as opposed to they played him and he was sucked. Like, at least see it and see if it, like, what if it does work? What if everybody's wrong? Like, everybody's coming out here and saying he hasn't played in 11 months. Did you see him last year in the playoffs? He wouldn't work in Philly. Well, what if everybody's like, what if all the people that are paid all this money are incorrect on this and he plays well?
Yeah.
Then
what? I'm just curious to see how he's going to do in and not even just like a regular season playoff game, regular season game environment, postseason in a hostile. Well, he's not going to play in Boston, but all right. So
ultimately, I mean, if this series goes long, he could see Boston. He could see game 5 or 7.
Right. So
he could be out there. It is a wild scenario. The Nets are a crazy team, and they'll be fascinating. How on a level of hate, hate, I won't be mean like that. How excited are you for them to get bounced?
It's gonna be nice.
You're thinking about it. You broke up a little bit there. You're thinking about it.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know what? I wanted to see Cleveland win the other night, and unfortunately they didn't. But you know what? I think their road now going through Boston, and let's say they beat Boston and then have to go into Milwaukee. That's a pretty tough first 2 rounds.
Oh, it's brutal.
If they were on the other side. Yeah, but on the other side, I think, you know what, the team, let's say they do get through Boston and Milwaukee, I think the team that's going to be waiting for whoever at the Eastern Conference Finals is Toronto Raptors.
So you think the Raptors get through the Sixers and then they get through, you're picking Miami versus Atlanta.
I like Toronto, man. Toronto is just, they're deep, they're well coached. That team they're a nice team. So
no, they're ahead of schedule. They're totally ahead of schedule. They pick things up pretty fast. Toronto Toronto's
And there's
dirty.
something wrong, and there's something wrong with Philadelphia still. Like there's like an imbalance. Something's not aligned with them.
Yeah, it's James Harden, dude.
Yeah.
I told you right now, he's lost the step. He's just not the same player that he was a couple of years ago. He's just not as good. I mean, he really isn't. I'm not saying this is not coming from a place of a Nets hate, because all Net fans recognized it. I mean, James Harden is just taking a step back, but he can rewrite the narrative in the playoffs here. He has a great playoffs. His whole story is written. I'm excited and interested, just as an NBA fan, to see him versus the Raptors, because James Harden in Toronto doesn't seem like somewhere he'd be successful with how good of a home court they have, Dolan.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Toronto is they're deep. They have a lot of, they have like, there's so many guys who are, like that's 6'9", who are able to, it's just I think they're going to cause problems for them. So, and that Toronto's home crowd is amazing. Is Van Vliet, what's his health status?
I don't know. I don't know. You're my insider. I don't ask me these questions. I need to ask you these questions.
I'm gonna have to ask some of my sources. So
if Alex was on this podcast, he'd know the answer. Okay, well, let's move on to the Knicks in a second. My first question though for you is Celtics Nets. What do you think it goes, and who wins?
Boston in 6.
And so what do you like the first two to happen? 2 in Boston, a split. What are we thinking?
I'm gonna say Boston wins game 1 pretty convincingly. Maybe like when it's all said and done. When I say convincingly, I think it'll be final score. They'll probably win by like 11 points, but there'll be a couple big stops late in the game. They'll be up by like 7. They'll be up like 6-7 points. The last 3 minutes will be a big play, and then Nash will pull everyone off the court. Like one of those things. Final score, they win by 11. I think game 2 is the one they're going to steal. And that's where I worry about the 2 quick fouls on Marcus Smart.
See, if I were to think the game the Nets would steal, it would be game 1, only because they've had more extended rest than they ever have. The last time the Nets played was a Tuesday night versus the Cavs. Now they play Sunday. I, as a kid, hated the rest, where it was like Sunday game, Wednesday game, Saturday game. And you're like, ugh, I just want to play the games I want to watch. But now as I get older and I see the implications of having the rest, I love the idea that Kevin Durant's going to get all this rest in between these games and extend the series for him. I think game 1 is the steal game. I think that's my opinion on that.
What's your take?
It's hard for me because you know me well. I hate to give my opinion on this because I think it jinxes it. I think the Nets have a chance to win this series. I think it's a toss-up series, and it could go in either direction. I really do. Yeah. I mean, and Alex said he likes the Celtics in 6. Like you, and I get it. You're both gonna be rooting hard for the Celtics. And what I do appreciate about you and Alex is at least you guys admit you're rooting for the Celtics and can't some of these people coming on here pretending like they don't give a shit really bothers me. I respect that you care and want the Nets to lose and can admit I dislike the Nets. I want Boston to win. And you're like, yes, I'm biased. I appreciate that.
Well, you know what? I think Justin Termini from you follow him on Twitter?
I know who Justin Termini is. I used to book him on CBS.
Yeah. So he's real. I enjoy his take. So, anyways, but
he hates the Nets.
Yes, yeah. He's obviously the boss. I don't know if he's from Connecticut. He's from Massachusetts. He's obviously a Celtics fan. But he was even saying how on his show yesterday about how if the Nets win, and let's say obviously if they go through the playoffs and win the championship, give them their credit too. But it's just a bad look for the NBA that you can just literally totally disregard the regular season, and because what is this going to lead to? Where it's am I not going to have to play 40 games? This can become a regular thing, 40, 50 games that you're going to have your starts. It's just all about the playoffs. So,
I'd love to talk to Justin about that. It'll never happen. But Bill Ryder had a comment like that yesterday. He works at CBS Sports Radio, and I quote tweeted him about it. What's so bad about this for the NBA? All anybody ever wants to talk about is the Nets. So why is that so bad?
Maybe he's thinking it from the perspective of, people buying tickets, you're going, or whatever it is where, you're not seeing the stars play. I don't know.
But why is it bad? Is the NBA going to wake up one morning and go, the Nets won the title, we're fucked? I honestly think that's an excuse for being angry that the Nets are that good, that they have the potential to do that. But this idea that they are bad for the league, I think is insanity. I think that's just an excuse for your own hatred versus the team. We'll wake up and the Nets win the title. Oh man, that was really bad for the league. Also, the circumstances of what have happened here, because Durant missed 2 months and James Harden quit, put the Nets in a lower seed position. Then let's be real, Dolan. If the Nets didn't have Durant get hurt, Harden doesn't demand a trade, and the Nets are probably the 4 seed right now, right? Or somewhere in that area. Does then his take on that change? The circumstance led us here. It wasn't as if the Nets, and also agree or disagree, but Kyrie not being able to play that whole time made it so he wasn't available. So yeah, I'll even take the other side of this point. They're the 7 seed, but it's not because they didn't try. It's because a lot of bullshit happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that was his take. I thought it was interesting, and
you're not defending him well. I'm passionate about this stuff because it annoys me, because Bill Ryder had the same fucking thing on his Twitter the other day where it's bad for the NBA.
Maybe it's based more on like last year.
Yeah, but here's the point I'm trying to make. He doesn't like Kyrie Irving, so he then says an excuse of this is bad for the league. Just say I don't like Kyrie Irving and it pisses me off that they win because I don't like him. At least
fine,
be honest.
I'm going to go on record. I do not like Kyrie Irving. I do not.
Yeah, right, and that's why you're rooting against the Nets, which I respect. I don't like when people say, "Well, it's bad for the league if the Nets win." Oh my God, it's gonna be so bad for the league. Knicks fans, are you not going to watch the NBA next season because it's so bad for the league? I think it's ridiculous. I'm passionate about this, Dolan. So, what do you think about Obi Toppin?
I can see you're triggered.
Yeah, this was a trigger point. Someone DM'd you to do this. So Obi Toppin, he's starting to. Alex said he looks legit. What do you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just I don't know why we're talking about Obi and the Knicks, as the story right now is about the Nets. But Obi,
we got to do some Knicks talk. I want to transition.
That is true. Obi looked fantastic down the stretch. It's just a shame that it took this late into the season, to finally get the minutes that he is deserving of. Rather than having like these games in January where he's getting like 7 minutes for the night. Like now, obviously, you have scenarios where guys put up big stats end of the season. You have to be a little cautious of that. But anyway, sorry about that. I don't know if you heard that. My daughter just came to me asking me if she can have a snack. So
what's the snack? What are we doing? What are we having?
It was like they're like Fig Newtons, but they're not Fig Newtons. I don't even know.
Are they good? Have you had them before? What flavor? Blueberry, strawberry?
Yeah, it's like one of those things. I can't remember the name of the brand.
What are we doing? Like 140 calorie pack kind of deal?
Something like that. Yeah.
All right. Anyway, back to Obi.
But back to Obi. What I was very impressed is that the outside shooting is something you can take away. And you know what? Like I feel like the haters are going to hate on the Knicks for whatever they do. So obviously he's playing well, or RJ Barrett's putting up the numbers, and then everyone would be like, oh, but they're doing this against a G League team, or they're doing this in the season with those guys. But what if Obi in those last few games is still 3 of 9 shooting, had 7 points in 30 minutes. Yeah. They'd be like, all right, this is a real problem, Knicks. Like this guy can't even do anything against this roster. I mean, the guy was putting up ridiculous stats. What do you have, like 42 points in that last game against the Raptors? I mean, he was really playing well. And what I like about him is that they're able to play with much better pacing, as opposed to when Randall is bringing up the ball and it's just like so slow, and it's this plotting, like, that's why.
And you like to see the chemistry, built. I know RJ didn't play in that last game, but him and quickly had a good synergy going. And I agree with you completely. Like, what if he was trashed in the last couple of games, was 3 for 12, 7 points? You at least feel, and this is how I would feel if I was a Knicks fan with what I saw from Obi Toppin. You at least feel hope. Like you felt
hope.
You felt like for the first 2 seasons, for a guy that's a lottery pick, which you're expecting a lot. There's a lot of excitement. I know how excited Alex was going in. The guy's not even getting minutes. I mean, he was getting between 8 and 12 minutes a game. And for a lottery pick, you're looking at all these lottery picks in the past from Ntilikina and Kevin Knox. I know RJ Barrett's looking like a good player, but it's just like, here we go again. So at least, maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe, who knows what happens. I think the book on Obi Toppin at least now doesn't feel closed, and you feel hope going into next year where you're saying, okay, we have Quickly here. We got RJ Barrett here. We got Obi Toppin. Let's see what happens with Mitch Robinson. Sims look legit. We got a lottery pick. You at least feel synergy and hope and excitement where a young nucleus is being built, as opposed to before where it would be like, that's another bust in Obi Toppin. That pick meant nothing. It's another year of regret. I could see the excitement. So I agree with you that the haters will hate. I don't know how good Obi Toppin's going to be. I don't think that 2-game sample size is enough to say he is legit as your starting power forward. but at least it gives you some hope that maybe the pick could turn out. And that's how I would feel.
Hey, the last few games, I mean, granted, he was playing 30 plus minutes the last 5 games of the season, 20 points, 20, 19, 35, and 42. And more impressively, the 3-point shooting. He was 12 of his last 23. So for those of you who can't do math at home, that's more than 50%. And even the games before that, 2 of 4, 4 of 10. So yeah, so he's very, it gives us hope. And I mean, I think I would like to see him start at power forward. I mean, but it all depends on what else is around. They need a legit point guard. So I said the last time I was on your show, which as we know did very good ratings,
The best ever.
I told you that his offensive game, it's reminiscent in a way to when everyone always makes a comp of like, it's Amari if he can have the point guard when Amari was in the Spurs on the Suns. But when you had Kenya Martin in your background,
I knew you were gonna say.
I know, because if you remember Kmart when he first came to the Nets, the last time the Nets made the NBA Finals, he had really a very limited offensive game.
With Marbury.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about when he had Kidd, the year with Kidd. Like, it was all alley-oops, fast breaks, but like you couldn't just like dump the ball to Kenyon and watch him make a post move. He couldn't do anything. He had like that like spot face. Occasionally he'd hit that like jump shot from the elbow, but other than that, like very limited offensively. So obviously he was more of a defensive player. I mean, but that's where OB needs a legit point guard to really unlock him, take him to the next level. Is he gonna? I don't know if he's the cornerstone franchise piece of a team, but he's, I think, a very good, ancillary piece. And I'm not saying like a bench player. I think he can legitimately start, but I'm not saying like he is the franchise, like the way, we look at RJ.
Yeah, it'll be interesting on 2 fronts. One, what they're able to do with Julius Randle in a deal, because getting him out of town is key, and what kind of values there. I mean, you run the organization.
I think they'll be able to.
Yeah, but
I think there'll be a deal to be made. He's still 27 years old. I know everyone says the contract. Yeah. This isn't a John Wall, Russell Westbrook. He's making $45 million a year. What is his numbers? It's
it's manageable.
Like mid to high 20s, and you look at it, it's still 27. It's a 27-year-old guy, so he's still physically in the prime of his career. It's very easy for another team to say, hey, we have a guy, we can have potential bringing a guy who's 20, 10, and 5, 27 years old, 1 year removed from an All-Star game, 1 year removed from second team, all NBA, bad situation in New York last year, fresh start if he comes to here, whether it's in Dallas, Sacramento, you name it. But I think there's an opportunity to get off, to move him.
Yeah, and it's got to see. There's two scenarios here. Is it a team that's bad that just takes him and they trade away another bad contract player kind of thing, and he goes there and he puts up numbers and the team stinks? Or is there a team that's on the verge of a title that's not quite there yet and needs another piece? I don't know how the numbers mix up or match up, but I'll use these teams for an example, like a team like a Miami that could use a good rebounder, not defensive player, rebounder, somebody else on that front court. Is it like a Celtics? Is it a young Grizzlies team that gets some depth? Like what is the kind of team
Charlotte
that moves? Charlotte, another example. Well, I guess they have with what's his face up for contract, spacing on the name. Their power forward.
Bridges?
Yeah, with Bridges.
Yeah, I don't know.
But that's what I'm saying. Is it a team that's just, a dumpster fire for another dumpster fire? Or is there a team that's going to give up young assets and some picks? Like, to me, if you're a Knicks fan, you want to get picks and young assets for Julius Randle, unless, you can make an amazing trade, but I don't think that's going to be there.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. So obviously, Vice President, President Rose has his work cut out for him. They can make a deal. So
does it bother you that he doesn't talk?
No. I mean, if he was going to talk, I didn't see his
people get upset about that.
I know, but if he was going to talk, but here's the thing: everyone makes it out like, look how transparent Sean Marks is. Everyone's mocking his little Leon Rose's sit down on MSG. What was like the last game of the season, saying like he said nothing. It was like state-run team. What about when Sean Marks does his town halls with Michael? Why
are you making this about the Nets? Or I'm asking you about the Knicks.
It's the same. It's the same thing. What does Sean Marks say? It's just they throw up, and I'm seeing this right now with my football team, where I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, as you know. I'm going to throw up. All they ever talk about is collaboration and communication. It's these buzzwords. It's nonsense. So what is he going to say? So
yeah, no, I hear you. I think Sean Marks is it. Well, I think there's a couple things. Now let's compare Sean Marks from 5 years ago. I think that would be the more accurate looking for apples to apples, because now it's apples to oranges. Sean Marks in this situation did have the town hall. He had it after the James Harden trade. What were the Nets doing when they sucked?
Was he doing
I don't know.
spots with,
I don't remember.
With your boy Evan?
He probably was on more.
Who treated me very badly last time I called into the show?
Yeah, what happened there? They ripped.
Yeah, him and Craig, they had no interest in talking Knicks basketball to me.
Well,
very rude and disrespectful.
Well, you had a Facebook memory pop up, and then I actually started stalking you on Facebook, and Evan at a moment where he was giving you a lot of love and saying it was him and Joe, his former partner, and they were saying how great you are.
Times have changed, so
they have changed.
Yeah,
but to get back to your point, I don't know the answer to that. I also think from a media standpoint, the Knicks are the bigger team in the market, so that plays an impact.
Yeah, but I mean, what is he gonna do though? He's gonna go on. It's gonna be, if you want to do this nonsense talk of we're doing collaboration and all this other stuff. It's like, if you want to do it just for optics, I don't know.
Final thing, and then we'll wrap this up here. Dolan J Trump, thank you again for filling in for Alex. Appreciate this. You gonna do any net spaces after a net loss, or what do you think?
Of course, I'll be in there. I like going in there just to hear what the guys are saying.
What do you think of the net fan on the spaces overall?
They're a pretty interesting bunch. I have respect.
Come on, let's hear it.
A bunch of Nets fans. I mean, I respect you. I respect Evan. I respect. Of course, I respect the legend Bob Windrum. We all know who that is. Do you know who that is or no?
Do I? Yes, Nets Daily.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that guy is the man. And I love.
How do you guys know each other?
Going back to my days, we must be Nets.
I have another question for you. How do you know Robin Lundberg?
How do I know Robin Lundberg?
Yeah, you were in studio with him once.
Yeah. That was from back in the day when on my old Twitter account, his producer invited me to be on like a Fanalist Friday. So I went in this, and actually I was on. So I co-hosted a show with him. This is going back. This is when the Nets were playing the Raptors in the playoff series. This was, I think, right before game one.
Net series, yeah.
Yes, this was right before game one. I was on like that Wednesday, and I think the series started like that Sunday. Yeah. So, or maybe it was on Fanalist Friday. Fanalist Friday. When we were talking about it, was on a Friday. Yes, and coincidentally, he was. I saw him a couple of years later. He was. He lived in my apartment complex.
Does he know who you are now on Twitter?
Yeah, he knows who I am.
You guys interact?
I don't know. He moved away, so I haven't seen him in a long time. So.
I'm asking all these hard. You're getting a little. You don't like this questioning.
No, it's fine. But yeah, so anyway, and then and I enjoy Eves from Pod Thorn. I enjoy Sam and Dan. That's it. Other than that,
how about the rest of the Net fans on Spaces?
And Brooklyn,
you don't like them?
No, they're all a bunch of. I'm convinced these guys are like 17-year-old kids who are just. They're so annoying on Twitter. Well, it's like, it's ridiculous.
Have you ever gotten to the point where you were legit pissed at a Net fan on Twitter, or is it all just like, stupid fun?
No, these people are low intelligent people. Where
whoa. I'm going to defend the Net. Low intelligent.
No, I'll tweet out something. What did I tweet out the other day? I'll make a comment, and then you have these people, and as Alex always elusive, that these aren't real people. They're all like burner accounts, whatever. And I just get. You're a poverty franchise, or like how many titles? I'm like, dude, it's a freaking joke from a parody account. Why are you getting all upset? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because people hate you. I will have to. And that's because you're doing a good job.
Who doesn't hate me? I'll tell you who doesn't hate me. Joe Tsai. He doesn't. hate me.
Yes, you guys.
Huge fan of mine.
Yeah, I will.
I haven't seen. I gotta talk to Joe. I haven't spoken to him in a while.
Oh my God, just name dropping. I will have to say this because the last time you texted me was after Patty Mills had a terrible game. And then the first game that he had back that was legit was when he played the Knicks. And I didn't hear a thing from you.
That was all arranged.
Well, why didn't you text me back?
I've been very busy.
Very busy. You're a dick. That was bullshit.
No, but you got to admit though, Patty was horrendous.
He was horrendous. He was Dolan. He's been awful.
Do you trust him right now still?
Do I trust him? I would say I would trust him more than Timothy Lawabu Cabarro. How about that?
What about do you want him on the court at all in a
Yes. As I think when he's on. But I think with the Nets now they have flexibility where if he's off, you take him off. But when he's hitting shots, he's a big asset. I mean, that Knick game, he had killers. He was 5 for 7 from 3 and had the dagger at the end. He was great. He's been better. He's been a lot better of late.
This is what's frustrating about the Knicks Nets is that there's clearly a mental thing now when the Knicks Nets play where the Knicks it's like they're intimidated by them.
I'm not even going to try to, It's
like
weird.
they choke, like even like going last year when the Knicks clearly had obviously a very good regular season.
Right.
But even when they played those games, I remember there was one game where like the Nets clearly out hustled them, and I'm like thinking, the Knicks' whole identity last year was all based on like we're gonna out hustle you, we're gonna defend you, we're gonna play tough. And I remember like one of those games in particular, the Knicks just got totally.
Yeah.
They were very passive and timid. And I think I think it's almost like a mental thing. Like in their minds, they don't think they can win down the stretch of a game. Even the game in Barclays when they were up by, I think they were up by 3 points, and it was like under 2 minutes to go. And once Julius turned the ball over, like, do you remember that play? I'm like, oh, that's it. They're gonna fucking lose right now. So
yeah, it's weird. Like since Alex and I have done the podcast, the Nets are 7-0 versus the Knicks in the regular.
Yeah, I remember
season.
the last win. Yeah, the last win is right after Kobe Bryant died.
Pass. Yeah.
Yep.
I do think this, and this is not a shot at Alex. The Nets have stars and the Knicks don't, and then at the end of these games, the stars show up. I think it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So like the last loss was disappointing, but the NBA now, the 20-point lead really means nothing. So
no, it can go fast, man.
Right. So like so like when you're up by 20, I remember I took my dog out and I'm like, what? They're up by 19 points, all of a sudden 21, and then I see like all of a sudden like third quarter starts. We're at the 8-minute mark of the third quarter, and all of a sudden the lead's down to 11. It's so much game left, so you can't even sit tight on that lead. So
we'll wrap things up here, Dolan. Is RJ Barrett a star?
RJ is on his path of becoming an all-star for sure. He's very promising.
I'm asking you the question. I like your answer. I agree with, but that's not what I asked you.
This I know this caused a lot of tension between you and your podcasting partner. I think RJ is a budding star.
So you would say budding?
Yeah. At this moment in time, is RJ a star? No, I think there's things of RJ he still needs to work on and get more consistent with, such as the free throw shooting, the finishing around the rim. And I think also even just like his mid-range game, but his 3-point shot has gotten better. He's still a little streaky. The games where you look up and all of a sudden he's like 3 of 12 shooting and it's the second quarter. But I mean, he's shown so much development and people still forget that he's 21 years old. So, give that guy another offseason. He's got the work ethic and the drive. And he's got the mindset to take adversity and just get better from it. So he's just unfairly judged. I mean, we know why. He's in New York. He's plays for the Knicks. Everyone,
Here. All right. Last one. I promise. Last one. Who do you think who would you rather start a team around? RJ Barrett or Darius Garland?
Wow. First of all, what is Darius Garland's whole like look? I feel like him and like the hair with him and Ja like right, they like the exact same hairstyle. You look at them sometimes, but I don't know. You know what? It's tough to say. I know what you're trying to do right now.
I know what you're trying to do. Yeah, that's enough. All right, it's been bad weather fans.
But I don't know. I mean, no one would want to hear me say it. But nowadays in the NBA, it's easier to build a team. You need a point guard. That is so crucial.
Garland's good though.
What's up?
Garland's good. I like him. Yeah, I like him.
Yeah, he's a really good player. But I'm curious to know how many he averages 8. I mean, Darius Garland's excellent. So it's very tough. I mean, I know Knicks fans would not like to hear me say this, but
you can't say it. You can't say it. Bring those balls out and say it.
You know what though? He gets to play in the city of Cleveland, where it's a little different than playing in New York.
You answer the question. Celtics in 6 from Dolan. I'm going to say a team in 5.
Last thing I want to say is this. I want to put you on the hot seat for a second. All right, Cam Thomas.
Cam Thomas. Yeah, I don't think. The more I've seen him, I think he'll be a nice role player that can score, but I don't think he's much more.
There you go. Okay, thank you. I've been saying this whenever people were at the beginning when they first drafted him. Saying, I remember Eves even said like, "This is James Harden 2.0." Blah blah. This is the guy I was thinking of all along, who put up big numbers in college, can score, couldn't play a lick of defense.
Right. No, that's why he's not seeing the court.
Marshawn Brooks.
Now he's also 20 years old, Dolan, and he's going to get better, and he can get hot fast. And I would say like, who would I rather have on this team now constructed, Kessler Edwards or Cam Thomas? It's Kess Edwards because he can defend, he's athletic, and he can sometimes he can shoot.
Is Kessler Edwards the new Karis LeVert media creation by Nets fans as if like this guy?
Let's say, Dolan, I'm in the middle of a point. Right, Stop it. I mean, I could go on here and make RJ Barrett have the same claims, but I respect you and don't say the stupid shit. If Kyrie Irving's out, I'd rather have Cam Thomas over Kessler Edwards. because Cam can make shots and get hot and do those kind of things that Kessler can't. And Cam killed the Knicks. And it was at the Garden earlier in the season. The Knicks were up a lot of points, and Cam Thomas just killed them.
Yeah,
I mean, he killed them
completely.
But RJ Barrett didn't play that game as well.
But do you see what I'm saying though about Marshawn Brooks? I'm not saying they're the same player, but Marshawn Brooks was that exact same guy. Late first round draft pick. I remember he had 50 points. I remember they said in college, I was the big hype up when they drafted him. Like, this guy once scored 50 points at Providence.
No, I get it.
I remember, if you remember, in his rookie season, I remember it was a game in Phoenix. And I remember getting very excited about Marshawn Brooks. For those of you who don't remember, I was a Nets fan back then.
Not only the Net fans. I was looking back at the 2002 power rankings from the Bergen Record. They had you at 7.
Possibly. But anyways, Marshawn Brooks, he was able to score in isolation situations. But the guy was very flawed defensively and other stuff. So yes, it's very, from a fantasy standpoint, you can look at it and be like, oh my God, this guy had 17 points in 9 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to go on here. This is why it's complicated, especially on Twitter.
No, he's good. He's good. I'm just saying the Nets fans, Nets Twitter world making like, we got the best player in the draft.
Dolan,
pick whatever.
Dolan, let me explain this. Let me explain this to you, because I think when we have a platform and you and I can talk about it, it makes more sense. But when you're on Twitter and you're putting propaganda out on the Knicks, as you should, that's your account. And then I think Net fans see you put down Cam Thomas. I could see how there could start to be a friction and a fight over something that's insane. But because the Net fan's sensitive because you're being an asshole on Twitter, then you're going out and you're pumping up all the Knick people. I could see how this could get created. And then on your end, you're like, these Net fans think this guy's better than he is, but they're coming at you because of what they've seen from you. And it creates this kind of storyline. So I get that. I think that's where it is. I'm playing the role of therapy.
Cam Thomas will not be on the Nets in a year.
Well, I
don't know. I just want to bring up Cam Thomas only because I'm not saying you were the one saying. I'm just, when people talk about how this guy is the next great star and the Nets took him at pick, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put things in perspective. There's always been guys in the league like this. Marshawn Brooks, like I said, Marcus Thornton, another guy, another fellow LSU guy, guys who can come in off the bench and put up buckets. And speaking of buckets, you saw the newest addition to the Dolan Trump campaign store line.
Let's hear it.
The walking bucket collection. It's bucket hats.
That?
It's all my hats. I now have bucket hats. Yeah, and all the famous award-winning logos. Grimes Square. Everybody loves Rowan. The newest one I just launched, Air Force One. So
I didn't put the photo out because I thought I looked fat. But I saw someone with at the Knick game at the Garden last week wearing your hat, and I introduced myself to him and I said, I know this guy, and we took a photo. He was very impressed. He was like starstruck almost.
Yep. So
you make enough money to live off this merch?
Yeah, I don't work anymore. This is a full-time job. No, I'm kidding.
But for people that are curious, where can they find it? Is there a site for people they can check it out? I know your Twitter handle, of course, but Dolan _J _Trump, but the site, unless you said it already.
The site is just dolanjtrump.com. It's got, like I said, award-winning merchandise on there. All great quality. That's all I wear at this point.
If the Nets were to win a championship, would you feel any joy for me?
I will say this. I do not want to see the Nets. I would like to see the Nets flame out in this first round. But if they were to win, and that's obviously a doomsday scenario for me and the billions of Knicks fans all around the globe, for someone like you who's been there from the beginning, Bob Windrum, like someone like him, like someone who's put in the blood, sweat, and tears of decades of just, all the Nets
bullshit.
Misery. I mean, fine. I can maybe be like, all right, good. I'll say like, good for you, but for the 18-year-old Kyrie stan, like, no, go fuck yourself, or the Brooklyn hipster who's like, hey, I just moved to Bed-Stuy and I'm a Nets fan. I'm going to go no, screw that guy.
Is it weird that like at the Garden last week, there was so many Net fans? That's gotta be frustrating.
You have Easter's coming up. You have Passover. It just started last night, so it's tough. And you had St. Patrick's Day a couple weeks before that.
Stop it. All right, this has been Bad Weather Fans, episode 112. Alex will be back with us next week. We'll probably be looking to schedule, in the midweek as the Nets are playing. The Brooklyn Nets do play their game number 2 on Wednesday. Game number 1 versus the Boston Celtics. Sunday, Nets, Boston. Game 1 in Beantown, 3:30 start. NBA playoffs starting right now as we're recording, so I'm excited to watch some of that. Follow Dolan on Twitter. He's a great parody account. Don't take it seriously. Dolan _J Trump. He's tremendous. Buy his merch if you're a Knicks fan or you just like having, some funny, silly stuff around. It's a really good follow. It's really good merch. I really highly recommend it. We'll have Alex back next week. Nets start their playoff journey. Follow us on myself on Twitter at Mike Delivers Pod and Alex at Nick Central. Don't forget you can watch this on YouTube. Tweet out where you're watching it. We always like that. We can retweet it. Dolan, thank you for coming on Bad Weather Fans, episode number 112. Hopefully next time I talk to you, the Nets did not lose. Probably will. I know my fate.
Go Celts. And one last thing I have to say right now on the Dolan Trump site, promo code MKGA, 50% off your second item. So you can mix and match any shirt, bucket hat combo.
Yeah, your feet dropped. Say it again.
MKGA promo code, 50% off your second item. Mix and match.
I think you said Knicks and Nets. You're selling Nets merch?
No, Knicks and match.
Wait a minute, it went out again. Did you say you're selling Nets merch?
Nets merch, yes.
All right, be an ass. All right, Dolan, thank you for coming on the podcast. Have a wonderful day.
All right,
I'll talk to you
pleasure.
later, brother.
Bye.
Bye.